history, societies have established rules to protect life, property, and dignity. However, the formal idea of human rights as universal principles is a relatively recent development. The earliest forms of rights and legal protections were not framed as inherent to all individuals, but rather granted to select groups chosen by rulers, religious traditions, and legal systems. Let's begin by looking at how early civilizations laid the groundwork for legal and ethical norms as part of their national laws. The earliest action that enshrined some notion of rights within an organized society is associated with the rulers of ancient civilizations. The Babylonian king Hammurabi, around 1760 BCE, established one of the earliest legal codes to promote the well-being of the people. This set of laws was inscribed on stone tablets and promoted the idea of justice. The code emphasized the protection of the vulnerable, such as widows and orphans, but also included aggressive principles, like the idea of the law of retaliation, or an eye for an eye. Centuries later, in 539 BCE, King Cyrus of Persia issued decrees granting religious freedom, limiting enslavement, and promoting racial equality after conquering Babylon. These decrees were recorded on the Cyrus cylinder, a clay artifact now recognized as a significant historical document. The policies of Cyrus influenced governance in the region and were later admired by thinkers in both the East and the West for their progressive approach to justice and human dignity. The concept of rights continued to evolve through the Roman Empire and religious teachings. Roman law developed ideas of natural law and citizens' rights, a belief that certain rights and moral principles were inherent to all humans regardless of status in the society. Religious leaders, such as Jesus Christ and the Prophet Muhammad, preached principles of equality, justice, and compassion. Christianity and Islam, along with other religious traditions, introduced moral frameworks that influenced legal and political structures for centuries. These teachings reinforced ideas of charity and the dignity of individuals, and much more. Although not in Europe during the 8th century, thinkers and religious leaders of the Islamic world, drawing from ancient Persian, Indian, and Greek thought and scientific discoveries, began to recategorize and formalize reason-based knowledge, which became the basis for emerging legal and political systems. The 15th century became a transition period. During this time, the Islamic civilization started a trend of decline. But the accumulated knowledge started to transfer westward during the Renaissance era. The notion of rights continued to develop during this period as part of national projects for emancipation and desire to limit the power of the cross and the crown during the Western Enlightenment period. The Enlightenment movement inspired many political revolutions. This movement resulted in many Western countries developing their own bills of rights, codifying many of their declared rights in national constitutions and national laws. These documents marked a shift toward recognizing rights not just as privileges granted by rulers, but as inherent to all individuals. Many Western nations followed suit, developing their own bills of rights and enshrining these principles in their constitutions and legal frameworks. But it was after the wars in Europe that impacted almost every country around the world, and that resulted in unprecedented destruction and loss of life, including the first time use of weapons of mass destruction, atomic bombs. That a concerted effort was made to universalize some human rights norms, and in 1948, 48 nation-states adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. As a non-binding legal document, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights became a foundational document that will guide world leaders to establish numerous binding treaties and covenants, bringing the notion of legal rights to universal human rights, the topic of our next presentation on human rights.